All right, y'all, we live. We live. We live. Peace. What's up, Soapbox Heroes? Let me go ahead and write something in the chat right quick. What's up? What's up? All right, now I see you over there. All right, so look, I'm about to hey, give me a thumbs up in the chat if y'all can hear me good. My audio's good. Give me a thumbs up in the chat. Perfect. All right, perfect. Yeah. All right, y'all. So Professor is new to this whole process of setting it up by myself. So y'all, please bear with me through this process. Please bear with me through this process because I'm new to this whole process. So let me get started though. Let me get started with my introduction quick. Uh-oh. I have a party on here tonight. What's up, Soapbox Heroes family? Thank you all for tuning in tonight with your voice, Professor Saliq. Appreciate y'all on this beautiful Saturday. So greetings, Soapbox Heroes family. Thank y'all for tuning in with me. Tonight's show is called Discussions. All right, it's called Discussions with Professor Saliq. So Discussions is a show that I put together and is to express open topic ideas. The things that I will cover on Discussions will be like history, current events, family, civics, law, etc. Okay. And this is an opportunity for us to build with the Soapbox Heroes fans, for myself to build with the Soapbox Heroes fans, and also to collaborate my listening base under this one platform. So I'm just trying to do everything under Soapbox Heroes. And this also will give us the opportunity for us to grow and for me to grow further beyond my reach, or my physical reach, to the masses of people. So I'm looking to get into a very healthy, logical, responsible, and historical conversation tonight. So tonight we're going to be dealing with the importance of knowledge, of knowing history. All right. So tonight we're going to be dealing with some very important history facts. All right. And so we're just going to go right into it. Y'all see it's on the title there. You guys can see it logged in into the title. We're dealing with the origins of the 4th of July. Okay. Now I know y'all gonna say, well, we just got done celebrating the 4th of July. What are we talking about the 4th of July for? Why we even talking about this? Well, I figured that I would come on. I was trying to come on before, but there was some technical difficulties trying to get logged in to the Soapbox Heroes channel multiple times. And then with my busy work schedule, I could not find time to try to get it done before or on the day. So time wouldn't permit for it. So now that I'm here and give an opportunity to just have a discussion so that we can just, build and have some knowledge on some things. So that's where we're at with it right now. So what I want to do is talk about the importance of knowing our history in relation to the 4th of July. Let me see something right quick. Let me see if I can see some comments in the chat right quick. All right. So look, I'm not going to be looking too much into the camera or to the side, so I won't see any comments until later. So I'm just letting y'all know now I'm going to be looking later because I have to have my video screen up, so I won't be able to see you. No time. All right, peace, family. I see y'all over there. Okay, so let me get back to what I was discussing. So let's get back to the discussion. So we're going to talk. So I'm going to introduce you with the origins of the 4th of July, and the importance of knowing this is so that we can have more, so that we become more aware of our history, or just more aware of history in itself. Okay. All right. We're celebrating the holidays of foreigners, and we're making it our own. I said it. Professor said it. We're celebrating holidays of foreigners, and we are making it our own. As American people, we always celebrate all American holidays. I know we celebrate, well, I'm not going to say we, but most people celebrate Christmas, Easter, Valentine's Day, Cinco de Mayo, right? 4th of July, President's Day, just et cetera, right? But however, we celebrate these holidays even if the holidays wasn't even for us. You know what that's called? That is called inclusion. It is called inclusion. Here's what's important. What's important is that we have an understanding on what it is that we're participating in and why we're participating in it. That's very important. That's the importance. The facts about the 4th of July of 1776, you have foreigners from Europe, known as colonists. They formed the 13 colonies, let me put it this way. You have foreigners from Europe, right? Known as colonists. They formed the 13 colonies, and they declared their independence from England and Great Britain, also known as the British Crown, okay? Which led to the formation of the United States. All right, so we're going to dig into a little bit of history. So, the 13 colonies are what is known as state governments. They're state government. They're regions of a state, right? And they are occupied by foreign occupation. So these 13 colonies are states governed by foreign occupation. All right. And so you have the states like Delaware, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, who else was it? It was Georgia, Connecticut, Massachusetts Bay, Maryland, South Carolina, North Carolina, et cetera, et cetera. These were the areas that the 13 colonies formed their jurisdiction. All right. Most people celebrate this particular holiday, and it's merely due to the patriotic military involvement of foreigners. All right. So it is known because of their involvement in fighting and involvement for their freedom, their separation. Okay. So I said again, most people celebrate this particular holiday is due to patriotic military involvement of foreigners known as colonists, okay, who are fighting for their American independence or for their independence from Great Britain. And so if you look throughout history, you can find a lot of the celebrations from a lot of the European nations with the independence celebration. They did it through festivals, music festivals. They even had parades. They did parades. They did many different types of speech engagements. They did heavy artillery solutions when they were blowing off the cannons, and so that was a celebration for them for their independence. So that's how all this stuff happened. But let's move forward to this real quick. What we're talking about the celebration of 4th of July in 1777. All right, Congress, they authorized what they call pyrotechnics. Pyrotechnics is what you know today as your commercial fireworks. All right. And so these fireworks was used in the 4th of July celebration. Say that again. These fireworks was used in response to the 4th of July celebration. All right. So let's deal with this word or this term that we're using so vaguely called colonists. What is a colonist? A colonist? Anybody in the chat can tell me what a colonist is. Can anybody tell me? I see it just Betty Boo over here. Yes, freedom. Freedom means freedom from England. Yes, from Great Britain. Yes. Okay. Colonist is a settler who has migrated to a particular area and they establish their permanent residence there. That's what a colonist is. So who are these particular colonists of the 13 colonies that we're talking about? And these particular colonists are France, France, Spain, Dutch, okay, England, Portugal, and so on. So the states that they were occupying were the states that I mentioned. I'm going to show you in a slide exactly what those states are, okay? So give me 1 second. Let me show you what these particular states are. Give me 1 second to share with y'all. All right, let me share. Okay, so here on the right-hand column, right here in the right-hand corner over here, move my camera. You see all of the southern states right here to the all highlighted in the red. You guys see that? It's all over here in the red. And so you have Delaware, you have Pennsylvania, you got New Jersey, Georgia, Connecticut, Massachusetts Bay, you have Maryland, South and North Carolina, you have New Hampshire, you got Virginia, New York, you see what I'm saying? You got Rhode Island, those are the 13 colonies. These are the areas that they occupy. And this right here, what you see, this the official flag after declaring themselves sovereign, and independent state, this was the flag that they used for their independence, declaring their independence. This is the flag right here. The flag that you're looking at right here, the 13 stripes, red and white, and then you have the 13 stars in the blue. This was their stars. This was their first American flag right here, right here. And this flag right here represents a new constellation. Okay, this particular flag right here represents a new constellation for the people who were trying to govern themselves. Okay, and those particular stripes represents the original 13 colonies, which is the red, white, and blue. Those stripes represent the original 13 colonies. All right, and so you also have the stars in the blue area. You see that? Those colors are very symbolic. Those colors are very symbolic because you have the red that symbolize their bloodshed, right? The hardiness, the valor, or the valor, etc. And then you have the white. The white for them symbolizes purity. And then you have the blue in that star, which represents perseverance and justice. And then you have those stars that represents those particular 13 colonies who formed their jurisdiction. All right, that's what you got there. So you have a new constellation, meaning that there was a change. There was something changing, and their change was coming out of the rulership of a monarchy government, which was Great Britain, and into their own independence. This is where you see the constellation, and it represents a new change. So let me just stop sharing that video, but I want y'all to see that. All right. So let me move my screen back. Okay. So that's that's what we have there. All right. Let me get this over here right quick. So knowing about these colonies, right? Well, we say, well, 1776 was the mark of their independence. If 1776 was the mark of their independence, then the question would be, is where, when, and how did these Europeans, colonists, come to the Americas, establish themselves a government, and fighting for their independence? Is a very good question. All right. We have to start the history of learning how this European nation was involved is through what we call the Duns Diversa, or the Doctrine Decree. And so where did these colonies arrive from? They came out of Europe. Okay. There was a pope by the name of Nicholas V. Okay. In 1452, he issued what they call a Papal's Bulls, Duns Diversa. And then later, following up with that, in 1493 was the Inter Caetera. All right. And so I want to show you on a slide exactly what I'm talking about. So let me share with y'all this particular slide. So y'all just bear with me, family. So where do they come from? All right, remember I said it started off. Okay, here we go. In 1452, it's called the Doctrine Decree by Roman Catholic Popes, Justification for the New World. All right, it says the Doctrine Decree by Roman Catholic Popes, beginning in 1452, were adopted by European Christian nations for the purpose of providing them a legal cover to pillage and destroy non-white civilizations around the world, whose citizens were indiscriminately slaughtered by the tens of thousands, enslaved, raped, and dehumanized. These edicts served as the foundation and justification for the Doctrine of Discovery and set in place a catastrophic chain of events for indigenous people, all in the name of empire expansion and religious righteousness. Continue. All right. All right, let me show another part of the slide. It says the Doctrine of Discovery, 1493. The Doctrine of Discovery was promulgated by European monarchies in order to legitimize the colonization of land outside of Europe between the mid-15th century and the mid-20th century. This idea allowed for European entities to seize lands inhabited by indigenous people under the guise of discovery. The Doctrine of Discovery established a spiritual, political, and legal justification for colonization and seizure of land not inhabited by Christians. In 1494, the Treaty of bear with me, Tordelius declared that only non-Christian lands could be colonized under the Doctrine of Discovery. All right, fast forward. In 1792, a U.S. Secretary of State by the name of Thomas Jefferson, he declared that the Doctrine of Discovery would extend from Europe to the infant U.S. government. The doctrine and its legacy continue to influence American imperialism and treatment of indigenous people. So how did they get in here? They got in here, like we said here, 1452, leading all the way to 1493, after Christopher Columbus sailing in 1492. So we have to remember how the Europeans started to use this terminology, discover, but when they came and they figured that they discovered, there was already inhabitants there. There was already people living amongst the land. And so this gave rise to European imperialism, going into indigenous land, taking the resources and pillaging. So this gave rise for their empire expansion, so to say. All right. So let me, so what was I going to go after that? I was going to go here. All right. When we're dealing with the colonists here in America, the first colony in America, the first colony was founded in Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. All right. And so most of the people who were settling in America at that time came because they were escaping their own religious persecution and a monarchical government. They were trying to escape from that, what was going on there. So these settlers, also known as pilgrims, right? We call them pilgrims as well. These particular pilgrims who founded the Plymouth, Massachusetts, they arrived in 1620. They arrived in 1620. So these settlers, or these colonies that we know, they pretty much flourished off of all the help of the indigenous people here. So they got everything they needed to survive and thrive through the indigenous populations that were here, right? And so there's a two-sided notion to the war. There's a two-sided notion to the war. You have the Republic, which is the 13 colonies, right? And then you have the monarchy, which is Great Britain. So when you're dealing with the 13 colonies, which is dealing with the Republic, right? That means the Republic means a state in which supreme power rests in the people via their selected representation, which would be elected people or elected officials. All right. And it deals with the Commonwealth. It deals with the people governing themselves in a way that the government is for the people. That's a republic. A monarchical government deals with a state ruled by a one person, sovereignty, absolute power, or absolute rulership. Is governed by a person. You know what I'm saying? So they have control over everything. So that's the two-sided notion to the war. So the two-sided notion to the war is you have the 13 colonies fighting against their monarchical government, which is Great Britain, right? So to further this history of independence, okay, these European settlers, they wanted to pretty much appropriate a lot of the land from the indigenous populations. However, due to the Great Britain 7-year war that ended the French and Indian War between Great Britain and France, that made a lot of the lands off limits to those particular settlers. And that was through the treaty. It was called the Treaty of Paris, or the Treaty of 1763. Okay. And so these settlers could not take the land that they wanted for themselves. All right. As you saw, as you know more in history, they started to have territories and sections where they couldn't just take land because some was ruled by France. Okay. So in the mid 1700s, people who were living in these particular American colonies at the time, they were British subjects. So our ancestors at the time of this colonization period took place, our ancestors and everyone else who was a part of these particular colonies were called British subjects because they were still loyal to the crown. You see what I'm saying? Because they didn't have their independence yet, so they were still loyal to the crown. However, the people in America, which is these colonies, they became very frustrated. They became more industrious. You know what I'm saying? They wanted to make a great life for themselves, right? But they had a lot of lack of input. They had a heavy load of taxation that came down on them. The laws that was heavy on them. You see what I'm saying? All this came down from Great Britain. So these laws were all the things that has governed their survival or their lives, all of it. And so they didn't like a lot of the restrictions that was imposed on them. So in fact, as they started to gain a lot of their economic power in America, they had got through enslavement and all those things and etc. The British Parliament, which is the king, they would come and snatch up all the resources from these 13 colonies. Started off with the Sugar Act. Remember the Sugar Act of 1764? Then you had the Currency Act of 1764, right? And then you had the Stamp Act, right? The Stamp Act of 1765. And then later with the Township Act of 1767, which all of that added to all the disenfranchisement from 1700 or 1750 all the way to 1770. So between that whole time period was what we see here, a lot of snatching up resources, right? So what you get is a lot of taxation, right? Like I remember saying that Chief Edwin said, you get taxation without representation. So that's similar to what they got, but that's what we had gotten to. So from 1774, right, to 1789, you have the Continental Congress, which served as the government of the 13 American colonies, and later the United States. So you have the first Continental Congress, which was comprised of the delegates from those particular colonies, right? So in 1775, you have the Second Continental Congress, which was convened after the American Revolution War from 1775 to 1783, had already begun. In 1776, 1776, what you have is the declaring America's independence from who? Great Britain, right? 5 years later, right? Congress ratified the first national constitution, right? So the Article of Confederation under which the country was governed until that time, right? Then until 1789. Let me say that again. So you have the Continental Congress, right? So you have the colonies, you have the Congress, which ratified the first national constitution. So you have the Articles of Confederation, right? That is what the country will be governed under until 1789, which replaced the current constitution now, right? So here it is. I'm gonna see what's in the chat. All right, the question is coming. I already know the question is coming. The question is coming. Where's the proofs, Professor? Where's the proof of this information, Professor? Where is it all at? You're talking good, but where's the proof? We need to see the proof. Well, it's in historical records. It's through your research. You'll find out. But let me be more specific. All right. The proof is in the documentation recorded in the Library of Congress. Yeah, it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to show you a slide. Actually, I'm going to show you the real. I'm actually going to show you the Library of Congress Declaration of Independence. So I'm going to show y'all that. I know y'all probably asking me, "What's up? What's up, Professor? Show us the true indeed." All right. So let me get to my screen. Let me show y'all what I'm talking about here. Okay, family. Share. Think you guys can see this. Okay, this is the Library of Congress. This is called an anonymous Declaration of Independence passed in the United States Congress by representatives of the American people. Okay, let me be very clear, family. You have to understand who is declaring their independence. It is the British colonies. It is Europeans. 1776 is their independence. Okay, so when we read this information, we're reading it under, remember, our ancestors were still enslaved. We wasn't free. Okay, so when we read this, understand who these particular delegates and these writers are. Look at the first word here, what it says. It says, when in the course of human events, it became necessary for one people to dissolve the political band which had connected them with another, Great Britain, 13 colonies, and to assume amongst the power of the earth the separate and equal station to which the law of nature and of nature's God entitled them, a decent respect to the opinion of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to what? Separation. Here we go. Look right here. It says, I'm gonna highlight this area right here. Can I highlight it? No, I can't highlight it. But I'm gonna follow along with me right here, y'all. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, right? That amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted amongst men, deriving their just power from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its power in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. That is very, I'm gonna stop right there for a second. That is very, very important because remember, a monarchical government is rulership, right? These particular 13 colonies wanted to govern themselves. And there was what? Corruption and dictatorship in the government, and they had power to what? Self-identify and claim their American independence through wars. That's where you get all these wars from. Let me just come all the way down here right quick so y'all can just come with me. I'm not gonna read all that, but y'all can go and get it. If y'all want this information, send your emails to Soapbox Heroes email. And then when Tyrone has it, we'll send you these things in PDF. So you don't have to go research it. I got it for you. If you want to go research it, cool. Go get it from the Library of Congress. If you want it from email to email, we'll shoot you that. I have no problem. We give you the information I have. Let's look at this right quick. I want y'all to take a look at this, man. This is very important, y'all. Take a look at this. Listen to this right here. Okay, look at this. We, therefore, the representatives of them, United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the restitute of our intention due in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies. Right here it says, solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies, there it is, y'all, there's a word, these united colonies are and of right ought to be free and independent states. Y'all hear that? That they are what? Absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, that all political connection between them and the states of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that a free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, which is commercial law, we're still with contracts overseas, which is international law, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do, and for the support of this declaration with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. This is deep. I'm saying it's deep because this is like history that we need to know about, so we know what is going on. All right. Look at who it's signed by. It is signed by order and on behalf of the Congress. Look at everybody who signed this. John Hancock's signature, President, Secretary of State, Charles Thompson. Look at this. It just keeps going on and on and on. Samuel Adams, Matthew Thornton, John Adams. It just keeps going on. All the signatures who signed the Declaration of Independence. And it was anonymous. And it was granted. So there you have it, family. There you have it. That is proof in the pudding. I'm looking in the comments right now. Betty Boo said, show us the proof. There you go. You got it. You got it. So yeah. Where am I going with this now? This is where I'm going to go with this. Now, you see the formation, right? You see the formation. So let me get into this a little bit more deeper. Let me get some water, y'all. Okay, let's deal with the Continental Congress and the United States. Okay. The United States of America, they formed after the agreement amongst the 13 colonies, amongst the 13 British colonies to be exact. It founded its origins in the Declaration of Independence signed in 1776. Okay. So they had to adopt to a federal form of structure. From the 13 states, they have expanded. We saw in the first slide that I showed you the 13 colonies, 13 states, which has expanded to what? 50 states, including Alaska, who else? Hawaii, etc. Okay. You have the federal government of the United States, which is the national government of the United States, which is a republic in North America on this landmass. And it's composed of 50 state republics with one district. That district is Washington, D.C., and with several territories. The territories are what they call insular possessions or federal enclaves. Insular possessions and federal enclaves are through contractual agreements with the states, which gives jurisdiction to the United States government in particular states. So that would be for a later lesson. So that's more dealing with federal power. How do federal governments get involved with state entities? Is through what we call state territories or territories, which deals with federal enclaves or insular possessions through contractual agreements. So that's why the federal government could come in and claim jurisdiction over particular lands because of the particular contracts. So, do anybody know when was the United States founded? Anybody in the chat? Can they lay out a date when the United States was founded? I'm looking in the chat and I'm waiting. And listen, I'm only asking a question. I'm not trying to challenge your intelligence in no way. I'm just asking a question to build with you. I shouldn't even ask a question, huh? Anybody know in the chat on when was the United States founded? Tyrone Irving says 1776. That's when they formed their independence in 1776. Remember, they formed their independence from Great Britain in 1776, but they still have to work out agreements to document themselves as a nation, right? The United States have to become a nation at some point. When do they become a nation? Who's this? She says, so do these other territories have options to opt out of being a territory for the United States? Yes, yes. Thug Nasty, yes, they do. They do have an option to opt out. And this is how you get indigenous governments. We're going to talk about that later, but that's how you get indigenous governments, right? So yes, everyone note this. The United States was founded in 1789. The United States was founded in 1789. So that makes what? The United States only 230 years old. So this government that we call is so great, this big government, it's only 230 years old. From today's date, 2019, from its foundation of 1789. How many years is that? See what I'm saying? However, let's be very clear about the observance of the Independence Day. That only became commonplace after the War of 1812 with the United States and Britain. The War of 1812 was a conflict fought between the United States, remember 13 colonies, the United States, the United Kingdom, Great Britain, and their respected allies, or the representative allies, say it to be that way, their allies. Remember, this is where the War 1812 happened, okay? So, just for record's sake, Philadelphia had marked the first anniversary of American independence, which is described in a letter by John Adams to Abigail Adams. Say that again. Philadelphia marked the first anniversary of American independence, which is declared in a letter by John Adams to Abigail Adams. Okay, I'm gonna post the link in the chat so y'all can go see how they mark the first anniversary of American independence. It's just for your records, just for you to have a little knowledge base. So let me do this right quick. Let me see if I can copy this and put it in the chat for y'all. Even if it may not be of any importance to you, but just so you know that they marked the first anniversary of independence. Meaning that it started when it was the second year, 1770. It was a year after independence, so they went on ahead and marked the first year anniversary, like, you know, after 1776. Okay, cool, we're going to celebrate this. So let me put this in the chat real quick, like, for y'all. If y'all can get it, y'all can just take it. No, Yeah, I can just put it inside your All right, so I put the link in the chat for y'all to have it if y'all want it. And that just marking the independence, you know, that's not really much, but just so you can have it, you know what I'm saying? So let's look at this. Let's let me get some water real quick, family. Y'all still with me? Y'all still with me? If y'all still with me, I'm gonna read the comment right quick. Thug Nasty 13. Let me see what you're talking about here. I know you blew through this. I'm still not done yet. Fast, but you have even gotten into how Ragtag Army defeated the Imperial Army. Okay, the Ragtag Army. To be exact, I never heard that term, Ragtag Army. So if there's another political term that they use to identify themselves as an army, then use that term, because maybe I never heard of that term before. So you might have to come and educate me on that, man, because I never heard the term Ragtag Army. But I can research it and do some due diligence. But the Imperial Army, so we know what the Imperial Armies are for sure. But I'm gonna have to have you come on with me and talk about that for a second, if you don't mind. So let's get to this real quick. Let's get to this right quick. Fighting for our freedom, right? Did you know in 1859, an institute called Banneker Institute of Philadelphia, they were urging African Americans to celebrate Independence Day while they were bearing the witness of their inconsistencies that happened with this whole ideal of adopting or supporting this Declaration of Independence? Did y'all know that? They were it's called the Banneker Institute in 1857. It's called the Banneker Institute. They were urging African Americans, but remember, African American is a denationalized term. Okay, the enslaved populations, right? They were urging us to celebrate Independence Day in 1859. We still wasn't free. Okay. There was a British general by the name of Dunmore. Name is Dunmore, right? He created a proclamation in 1775 out of Virginia, and he promised freedom to the slaves, right? Which were also known as prisoners of war. Okay, so it was a choice for our ancestors to fight with the colonists for their fight for independence, or to fight with the British, right? What the British promised. The British promised us emancipation, right? They promised us emancipation. However, prior to all of this, there has been slave revolts, Native American revolts, right? Have already preceded all of these wars of independence. Already preceded it way before. So from 1619 all the way into Nat Turner's rebellion of 1831, we have been fighting for our own liberation and our own freedom. Ever since then. Ever since then. I got a little emotional. All right, I got a little emotional. Because sometimes subconsciously we think that we're free, right? Which we are to some degree. But we are citizens under a government that was the colonizers of our ancestors. It's kind of puzzling that how they show themselves. Let me not get into that. I'm about to go off somewhere else. I'll follow up later. But we were fighting for our independence. We've been fighting for our independence. So like I said, from 1619 to Nat Turner Rebellion of 1831, we have been fighting for our own liberation and our own freedom. Okay? You know what I want to do right quick, y'all? This is what I want to do. I'm going to show you an insert. Okay? This particular insert is done by an actor by the name of Philip, I think it's Philip Darius Wallace. Philip Darius Wallace. So I'm going to show you a clip. I'm going to show you guys a clip of Philip Darius Wallace, who's an actor. He's going to do a reenactment of the greatest anti-slavery speech by Frederick Douglass in 1852. Okay? And the particular insert that he's going to do, because Frederick Douglass was the one who spoke amongst 500 to 600 people during his time. And the name of the play, or the name of the speech, was called "The Meaning of July 4th to the Negro," known as "What to the Slave is the 4th of July." Okay? So when I'm getting ready to show this, and I got to put this out there for the viewership, the content is the property. The content is the property of the U.S. National Archives. All right? And it is viewable for public access on YouTube. Okay? And so this particular insert that I'm about to show you, it was done on July 5th of 1852. Okay? Frederick Douglass, he spoke to a group of abolitionists. Okay? He was reminding them that for the slaves, or the former slaves, the Declaration of Independence represented a false promise of their own liberties. See what I'm saying? So it was a false promise of our liberties. So Frederick Douglass was reminding them about this. You know what I'm saying? They said, hold on, man. You know, this ain't real. This ain't right. So let me show you guys. Let me show y'all this video real quick. Y'all with me? Who wants to see the video? Who with me? Give me a thumbs up in the chat, y'all. Give me a thumbs up in the chat, man. Let me see what y'all doing over here. And we still fighting. Thug Nasty, you right. We still fighting. Man. Right. We still fighting. We're going to fight together. We're going to fight together. For sure. We got solutions. We got solutions now. So, let's see. Thug Nasty says, don't throw it, Frederick. Don't short Frederick, bro. Play the whole thing. If we need to learn, the whole speech will give you chills. Ooh, you know about it. Okay. I'm going to give enough information, because that speech is long. So I'm going to give enough information so that you can understand his speech, his sincerity, and where were we at that time, and his boldness. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm going to do. That's what I'm going to do. So let me do this right quick. Let me start. Let me do this right quick. Let me make a note for myself. All right, let me show y'all this video. Excuse me, family. Give me a second. All right, here we come. Here I come, y'all. Bear with me, family. All right, let's listen to the video. Let me turn my fan off over here. Never mind. It's cool. It's cool. Let me see. Where's the video? I'm gonna have to share my screen with y'all. I'm gonna have to share my screen with y'all so y'all see what I'm looking at. All right, so let me get to the video. Here we go.
Very importantly, Douglass insisted on giving the speech on July 5th and not July 4th. He felt that until all African Americans were free, he could not celebrate July 4th on the 4th. For those of you who think that this country still has a ways to go to achieve all of the ideals of the Declaration of Independence, which of course begins with the assertion that all men are created equal, it's therefore significant, and in the great Douglass tradition, that we're having this event on July 3rd and not July 4th. Just before Douglass gave his July 5th speech, Rochester's Reverend Robert R. Raymond read the complete text of the Declaration of Independence. Then Frederick Douglass walked to the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, the meaning of July 4th for the Negro, otherwise known as what to the slave is the 4th of July.
Friends and fellow citizens, he who could address this audience without a quailing sensation has stronger nerves than I have. I do not ever remember to have appeared before anyone more shrinkingly, nor with greater distrust of my abilities than I do this day. The fact of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, the distance between the platform and the slave plantation from which I escaped is considerable, and the difficulties in getting from the latter to the former are by no means slight. That I am here today, to me, is a matter of astonishment as well as of gratitude. With little experience and less learning, I've managed to place my thoughts hastily and imperfectly together, and trusting to your patient and generous indulgence, I shall proceed to lay them before you. This, for the purpose of this celebration, is the 4th of July. It is the birthday of your national independence. It is to you what the Passover was to the emancipated people of God. It carries your minds back to that day and to the act of your great deliverance. May the patriot not hope that high lessons of wisdom, of justice, and of truth shall yet guide her in her destiny. Were America older, the patriot's heart might be sadder, the reformer's brow heavier. America's future might be shrouded in gloom, and the hope of her prophets go out in sorrow. There is consolation in the thought that America is young. Fellow citizens, pardon me and allow me to ask, why am I called upon here to speak to you today? What have I, or anyone I represent, to do with your national independence? Are the great principles of political freedom and natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us? Am I to confess the benefits and express devout gratitude resulting from the blessing of independence to us? Would to God, for both your sakes and ours, an affirmative answer would truthfully be returned to the question, then would my labor be light and my burden easy and delightful. For who would not lend his voice to the hallelujahs of a nation's jubilee when the chains of servitude had been torn from its limbs? But such is not the state of the case. I say, with a sad sense of disparity between us, I am not included within the pale of your glorious anniversary. Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The rich inheritance of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness bequeathed by your forefathers is shared by you me. The sunlight that brought life and health to you brought stripes and death to me. This 4th of July is yours, not ours. You may rejoice. We must mourn. And to drag a man in fetters and the grand illuminated temple of liberty and call upon him to join you in joyous anthems is inhuman mockery and sacrilegious irony. Do you intend to mock me, fellow citizens, by calling me here to speak to you today by the rivers of Babylon? Yea, we sat down. Yea, we wept when we remembered time. We hung our harps on the willows in the midst thereof. For they who led us away captive required of us a song, and they who wasted us required of us mirth, saying, sing that song of Zion. But how should we sing the Lord's song in a strange land? Oh, Jerusalem, if I forget thee, may my right hand forget her cunning, and if I do not remember thee, may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth. Fellow citizens, beyond your national and tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wailing of millions whose chains, grievous yesterday or today, rendered more intolerable by the jubilee shouts that reach them. If I do forget, if I do not remember the bleeding children of sorrow, may my right hand forget her cunning, and may my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth.
That's it on the video, family. I'm gonna go ahead and stop it right there. That is a very, very powerful video. You guys can find that video on YouTube as well. You guys can find that on YouTube as well. So please just understand that the independence was not for us. It wasn't for our ancestors. It's very clear through historical documentation. It's very clear through celebrations. And we must understand history in its origins so that we can have a better understanding moving forward. You know what I'm saying? But what was I getting ready to do here? I want to show you guys something else. Let me see what we got in the chat. So in closing, this is just, you know, my closing statements, because after that video, it's a powerful video. It makes you think a lot. So fighting for our freedom, this is my closing. Slavery in America started in 1619, if that's the recorded records, and it ended this legal institution of slavery in 1865. That lasted 246 years, okay? Slavery was legal in America and permitted in the original Constitution through provisions like Article 1, right? Section 2, Clause 3, also commonly known as the 3/5 compromise or 3/5 person, but it is known as the 3/5 compromise, okay? In 1863, what happened? We have emancipation, the Emancipation Proclamation, which was an executive order issued by President Lincoln. And then what happens after that? We get the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution, which abolished slavery and involuntary servitude except as punishable for a crime. That was passed by the Senate in 1864. And it was later passed by the House in 1865. All right. Then after that, what you get is the Black Codes. Black Codes were laws that were passed in 1865 and in 1866. All those were passed by Southern states after the American Civil War. You know what that was done to do? that was intended to do? That was intended to restrict African Americans from their freedom. Okay? Are we celebrating our independence? Are we free today to enjoy life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as mentioned in the Bill of Rights, which is clearly stated for ourselves and our posterities? That means for the creators and the inventors of the United States and the Bill of Rights, that was for their posterities, meaning offsprings or descendants. We have been granted what you call civil privileges under the 14th Amendment citizenship through selective incorporation or selective incorporation. That's more of understanding citizenship or offered citizenship. Offered citizenship under the Snyder Act of Indigenous people was in 1924. And then you have the African Naturalization Act of 1870. So we still wasn't a citizen under this colonized government until later. And here we are today, or here most of the people are today under colonization. In 1941, right? In 1941, the 4th of July, that became the federal holiday known as Independence Day. All right? In 1941. That became the federal holiday known as Independence Day. These particular colonists have every right to create, celebrate, and create a holiday for themselves for their own accomplishments, right? I say we, as a nation of people, we have been colonized, subjected to genocide and denationalization, right? We should have the right to make a conscious decision, right, on what it is that we celebrate and why. Let's be very serious about our history and our now, okay? Let's not be afraid to separate for what is not ours. Inclusion, it's my term, inclusion is an illusion without the same intent, okay? So in order to be included, what happens? A person must be informed. 89 years later, our people were granted citizenship. If you look at the Declaration of Independence and you look at our freedom of 1865, which is the Emancipation Proclamation, which was an executive order by President Lincoln, from 1865 to 1865, right? Or 1776, through all those times, and look at when we had got offered citizenship. So, it's important for us to understand what is it that we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing, in celebrating holidays with the mental purpose. You know, a lot of us are just doing things for inclusion, and we don't know the history of it. You know what I mean? So I know a lot of people probably went out and bought their flags and got patriotic, got all American. It's all right. Because those celebration of these holidays also to bring families together. Everyone gets a day off of work. People find time to get a chance to see family members they haven't saw in a while. So I get it. So these days can benefit us for our own purpose. But if we're doing things, it's better for us to maybe have a full knowledge base of what we're doing so that we can educate the ones that come in after us, like our children. You know what I mean? So that's my closing statement on it. And so I'm done with my presentation. This particular presentation was the facts about 4th of July of 1776. moving into its history. So now I'm just going to take some maybe some questions in the chat, because that has concluded my show on Soapbox Heroes. So for those who came in late or who's going to watch late, please go back and watch the full video. And remember, I said this is my first time doing this by myself and trying to construct everything. So if I was, there's room for improvement. So things will get better in time. So is there any questions in the chat that Professor can address? If there isn't, then I'll wait to see if there's any questions, and I will fade to black. Okay, let's see if there's any questions in the chat. Now I'm sounding like Tyrone. Doug Nasty 13 says, I think we're all Americans now. Anyone that thinks I'm going back to Mexico is crazy. Okay. America is a landmass. Americans is how you identify your political identity. You know what I'm saying? As Indigenous American, Native American, they say under particular tribes and identity. So you're American. So by all means, no one wants you to go back home. If you love it here and you became a citizen here, then by your citizenship status, you are American. So, but just understanding the history, just understanding information. You know what I'm saying? What is an American? You know what I mean? And so there was Indigenous Americans that were already here. So, and then it's a perfect example of what you said in that chat, Thug Nasty. That's what the 13 British colonies did. The 13 British colonies were European nations, right? Spain, Dutch, Portugal, etc. And what happened? They did what? Self-identification, which is called self-determination. You find this in the laws that it says self-identification or self-determination. What does that mean? That means to identify yourself. So these particular Europeans from Europe weren't Americans. They made a political stance and said, we are to be called Americans. They didn't ask permission. They fought in wars and bled for that. And they said, we want to be called Americans. You ask anybody who is a Dutch, a Spaniard, a Portuguese, or any from Europe, they're going to say, what? I'm American. But what you ask them is where your ancestors come from? What is your just sanguineous, which is your bloodline? You know what I'm saying? They would tell you, oh, it goes back to Europe. So then we have a better understanding. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, okay, so you are British American. Your bloodline goes back to British, right? But you have your birthrights here, which is just solely. So because they have rights to the soil. Why? Because they were born here. Anyone who was born in America is an American by just solely rights, which means rights to the soil, right? I mean, rights by blood, rights by the soil. Just sanguineous means that you have rights to the land through bloodline. You know what I'm saying? Which are the indigenous or the original inhabitants of that particular landmass or location. But we know what colonists mean, though, right? So when you go back and you go back over the video, you know, we discussed that. You know what I'm saying? So that's very important. That's very important to know that. Is that what is a colonist? You know what I'm saying? We talked about that. A colonist is what? I'm sorry, a colonist is what? It's a settler, right? It's a person or people who have migrated to a particular area to do what? To establish their permanent residence there. So now they have permanent residency through Doctrine of Discovery, right? Through their empire expansion. And then they had a lot of fighting. Did you notice that all these wars are European wars, fighting each other? And then we get thrown into the fights. So, yeah, I think, you feel me, y'all? Let me see what's in the chat. Any other questions? Okay, I had a question earlier. Do you celebrate the 4th of July? Why did it break away from England? Okay. Do I celebrate the 4th of July? No, I don't celebrate the 4th of July because it wasn't my independence. It wasn't my ancestry in independence. Our ancestors fought in the Civil War of 1812 for their independence. Remember in 1775, Dunmore, remember the proclamation he tried to offer us is to fight for our independence and freedom in the war. And then he said, and then what happens? You have the Emancipation Proclamation from the British Parliament. So we were fighting for our own separation. So to be specific on that, no, I don't celebrate the 4th of July because it wasn't our independence. Now, do I take that day in observance to spend time with my family and get together because that's a day off of work and it's a time, you know, it's paid and everything? Yeah, I get together with the family and we talk and we have fun. One thing that because we grew up accustomed to 4th of July celebrations, but as we become more aware, what happens? We become more knowledgeable of understanding what it is that we participated in, right? I like the fireworks show. I like all the boom and blasting in the air because, you know, pyrotechnics, they made it very, very fascinating to watch. So I like it. You know, I like watching those fireworks go up in the air. But I understand 4th of July. I know what it is. I'm not buying, you know, the original 13th. I'm not buying the flag. I'm not putting none of that stuff up on my house. I'm not buying cakes that's red, white, and blue. I'm not doing none of that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just taking a day to spend with my family and you know, go outside and look in the sky, see what everybody's doing. That's all. So let's see another question. Why did we break away from England? Whoa, it's not why did we. If you're saying we, that means you're European. That means you're one of the colonies. You bloodline one of the colonies. So if you, Betty Boo, I know you ain't from Europe, girl. I know you ain't from Europe. So it's not that we didn't break away. We were already away. We had our own indigenous governments and tribal nations that we were already a part of, and you know, we were prisoners of war. And we can find this particular information through treaties. We were prisoners of war. My ancestors were prisoners of war, and then we were enslaved to expand American colonization for their financial success. And so, but remember, look at all the slave revolts. We were fighting. We were dying because we didn't want it. You know what I'm saying? But after so much time of indoctrination, you know, some people stayed. Just like Harriet Tubman says, I could have freed 100 more only if they knew they were slaves. You know what I'm saying? So sometimes the psychological warfare that's played on our people, it leaves us in a disarray. And sometimes watching the brutal acts that happened to our ancestors through the beatings and etc., it puts fear. It's fear mongering. So that fear lingers, and some people don't want to face the persecution, or you know what I'm saying, of what they seen their husbands or their daughters, other masculinity men go through. They don't want to see that, or women, they don't want to see that. So we didn't break free. We already was here. we already was here. She said, "Nope, I'm Native American, baby." That's right. That means you indigenous, girl. You indigenous to the land. That's what I'm talking about. I'm indigenous, baby girl. She said, I'm Native American, baby. I'm with you. I'm with you. Okay, let me see what else. My bloodline goes to Jalisco, Mexico, Central Mexico, 52% indigenous. You indigenous. You find out where the other bloodline come from. What are you? You know what I'm saying? What's the other 47%, you know, 48%. What's the other 48% of your bloodline? You know, so when we study history, we deal with a lot of Central and South America. We deal with the oldest civilizations, which was a she misnomer. I'm sorry, which is the original name is a she. The misnomer is Olmec. So the she people are the origin or the oldest civilization of the Americas. But that's for a later discussion. We can get into those things as well, because those are some of the things I like to speak about and bring historical facts on as well. But today was pretty much about 1776, y'all. 1776. So just understanding colonization, understanding colonists, understanding their origins, understanding our independence. When was our independence? When did we get the Emancipation Proclamation? You see what I'm saying? Freedom, offer citizenship, etc., etc. So please go back and review the video and let me know what y'all think. Please like it, thumbs up, thumbs down if it was bad, and we can work on the next one to improve. And that's it. I think that's all for me, y'all. I don't have anything else. Anybody in the chat got anything else? I'm looking in the chat right now. How long have we been on? See if I can find one of these. Trying to find an emoji, y'all. Can't find no emojis to put on here for y'all. The next show talk about Juneteenth, the Emancipation Proclamation, Juneteenth, the freedom, our freedom. We could do that. We could talk about our supposed freedom, which deals with selective incorporation, which deals with inclusion, which deals with civil privileges. And so we could talk about that and we can deal with that. And then we could talk about the solutions that we can be a part of institutionally, which will be plebiscites for indigenous rights, nationality, dual nationality, ship, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, those conversations for sure. We can do that. We can do that. I ain't worried about the spelling. I understand what you mean. All right. Anybody got anything else before I play some music and close out? Anybody got anything else for me? Let me do this right quick while y'all. Let me do this right quick. Thank y'all for tuning in. Thank y'all for tuning in to Soapbox Heroes. Tonight, the show called Discussions with Professor Saliq. I'll be on again to build with my family here, y'all. Peace and love, and thank you for everything. And one love. I'm out, y'all. Let's get this beat rocking for y'all again, so some of y'all can rock with me. All right, family. Peace. I'm out of here, y'all. One love.